here there's a bit of a space between the cactus and the side of the window, right? So that alone, believe me, this is all your brain needs. That amount of disparity, unpairedness, or of the visual input, to be able to then put that representation and that representation together and give you what we see as three-dimensional depth. Now, there's a particular quality associated with this experience that you can only appreciate if you walk around with an eye patch for maybe half an hour, half a day. If you're really courageous, try to do it maybe half a week. Don't try climbing stairs without holding the railing, because I'm sure you will fall. Don't try driving, because I'm sure you're going to run into people close to you, and so on and so forth. So there's something qualitatively different about having two eyes in terms of seeing the world that you lose by just taking that additional input away. And that is what allows the cat, the lion, and us to keep, well, our ancestors maybe, because they have to go hunting. We don't. We have to go shopping. To be able to catch the next meal and keep handing the torch down from generation to generation, so we end up looking like them without any of the environmental demands that they have to go through. So what do we do? Instead, we build technologies that end up tapping into this capacity to help us enjoy our lives more, maybe go to movies more often, or bring 3D technology home. But before we get there, let me just tell you a little bit about what's happening. I've taken all the formulas out of it, so it's pretty much as rudimentary as you can get. And what I'm going to get across to you is basically a slice of the world. It's like we're looking at the world from top down. We're cutting through the world and taking a cross-section, including the eyes, and an object that the eyes are looking at. So that object, for the sake of simplicity, is just a dot. It's a single spot, which we call the fixation point, the point at which the eyes are fixed out there in space. Now what happens every time you have a fixation point, could be on me right now or on the screen or some other object, that creates a sort of an imaginary plane, which we call the horopter over here. The names don't really matter. What matters is that everything that's on this plane has no disparity. All the objects that land on this plane are perceived to be at the same distance than your fixation point, or as your fixation point. So the reason you don't see depth emerging from the rest of the screen as you're looking at that fixation point, at that spot, is because your horopter is passing through that screen. So everything on that screen ends up having that characteristic, that property of zero disparity. Everything that's closer to you than the screen falls in this neighborhood, which we call cross disparity, and everything that's behind the screen has uncross disparity. So what do these things mean? So here's another point on the horopter, and as you can see, if you measure those distances, we go back to the correspondence problem, right? There is no correspondence problem. Those points, the image of that point is falling on corresponding retinal spots. And as a result, as I said, there is no depth information to be had. I think I lied. I left some of the formulae and notation there. It's okay. I'm just going to skip over it. So what if I put a point beyond the horopter? So it's as though you're still looking at the screen and you notice the painting behind, right? Without moving your eyes to it. You just know there is a painting further away from the screen. Then as you can see, it comes really down to the laws of optics. Those two images in the two eyes are not on corresponding points, right? Their distance from that reference point is not the same. And because of the way in which these kinds of images form, because of the relationship between those two distances, all those objects end up being perceived as being behind your fixation. No matter where you're looking at, no matter what you're looking at, there are often things behind or farther away from that thing and things closer to you than that thing. And it all has to do with, again, with these relationships. And quickly, just to show you the opposite, this is what happens for objects that are closer to us than the horizon. So, the gist of this is that, generally speaking, objects don't fall on the horizon, that do not fall on the horizon, fall on non-corresponding points, and these make disparate images, and this angle that I kept sort of pointing at, but not really explaining, is what the brain constantly computes. It computes the angle between, or the difference between those two angles, to try to give you a correct sort of judgment of where that object falls in space. And again, I've already talked about these things, so I'll skip over them. And since there's not going to be a test, you don't really have to spend a lot of time reading those things. So, what happens in the laboratory then to test the validity of these ideas? So far, this is a very beautiful idea because it seems to follow logic, it seems to follow mathematics, it's predictable, you can extend it with a formula, and so on and so forth. But does it actually hold? I mean, if you manipulated objects in the laboratory environment, could you get people to see 3 dimensions out of 2 discrete retinal inputs that have that amount of disparity built into it, right? All you need to do is create something like we saw over here. Oops. If I presented this right image selectively to your right eye and presented this left image to your left eye, which is not the way you're seeing it right now. Both of your eyes are seeing both of the images right now. But if I took one image and somehow put it in the left eye, the other one to the right eye, could I get you to see 3D? If I could, then all of the things I talked about are true, because that's what the model predicts. That if you manipulate the position of these things sufficiently in space, then the brain should take care of the rest of it. And the answer is, have you been to Avatar? It does work, right? You go there, you put your goggles on, and 30 seconds later you're in this world that you hadn't seen before. You're almost getting into the story and going up and down and sideways with all the characters. Why? Because of the way in which information is being presented to your brain. Each one of your eyes is presumably seeing a single image that is manipulated sufficiently to provide you with this kind of information. The brain takes over, combines the information. You don't have to do anything, right? Just eat your popcorn, or keep track of the story, and the rest is history. You come out and you've had a wonderful experience, and you don't even know how it all happened, except that you had to put those goggles on. Some of you might have just peeked through, or maybe took the goggles off and see, oh, it looks crummy. I mean, the image is kind of blurred, and the moment you take it off, it's a flat world. It's not 3D anymore. So it has to do something with the wearing of those odd-looking things.